Okay, quick test for you listening right now. I want you to listen to this sentence and tell me exactly how many words you hear. Ready?
Yeah, pay close attention to this.
Here it is. Giet. I'll say it again. Giet.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, there's the entire sentence. Go ahead and say it out loud wherever you are right now. Giet.
I mean, if you guessed one word, that's incorrect.
Yeah.
And if you assumed it was a two-word phrase just mashed together, that's also wrong. It's actually 3 distinct words.
3 normal, everyday English words that you have probably known since, like your very first English class.
Exactly.
And the promise we are making to you today is that by the end of this deep dive, you are going to hear all 3 of those words perfectly.
You really will.
Because we are looking at this fascinating stack of linguistic sources today, and it's all focused specifically on B1 English listening practice.
Right. And the core mystery we're trying to solve here is this. Why can, thousands of vocabulary words on paper, ace a written grammar test, and still freeze in total panic when a barista asks you a super simple question?
It is a phenomenal question because it strikes at the heart of a major frustration for language learners.
No, totally. People tend to internalize this failure. They think they just don't have a large enough vocabulary.
Right, like they need to memorize more flashcards.
Exactly. But our sources completely dismantle that idea. The issue isn't a vocabulary deficit. The issue is a fundamental mismatch between the language you learned with your eyes and, well, the language you are suddenly being forced to process with your ears.
That makes perfect sense when you think about how language is traditionally taught, right?
Yeah.
Like in a classroom, the teacher stands at the front and articulates every single syllable.
Very slowly.
Yeah, every word is isolated. It's kind of like learning about the ocean by looking at a glass of tap water.
That is a great way to put it. And there's a story in our sources that captures this perfectly. It's about this student named Marco.
Oh, right. The guy who moved to the U.S. from Brazil.
Yeah, and Marco's situation is incredibly common. The sources note his grammar is spectacular. I mean, he understands complex structures like the third conditional.
Which is crazy because most native speakers use that intuitively, but could never actually explain it on a chalkboard,
Never. They'd have no clue. So Marco arrives in Chicago. It's his first morning. He's confident. And he walks into this classic, busy American diner.
He sits at the counter. The waitress walks up with her little notepad, and she just says, "Hey, hon, what do you want?"
And Marco's brain just blue screens.
Total system failure.
Yeah. He just stares at her in absolute silence.
So the waitress sees the confusion. So she tries to clarify. She says, "Yeah, I want coffee."
But Marco relies on his textbook training and replies, "I do not understand. Could you repeat, please?"
Oh, man, you can feel the awkwardness.
You really can. Finally, the waitress realizes what's happening. She slows her speech down to a crawl, raises her volume, and basically barks at him, "Coffee!"
And instantly, the switch flips for Marco, right?
Yeah.
He understands.
Yes. It's an agonizing situation because Marco already knew the word coffee. He knew the word want. He possessed all the necessary data.
But his brain just had no acoustic model for what those words sounded like when they were compressed, warped, and just fired out of the mouth of a real person at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. We're talking about the phonetic reality of spoken English versus the idealized version printed in textbooks. The sources describe textbook English as like a neat row of people wearing stiff suits.
Right, standing perfectly straight with space between each of them.
But spoken English is a loud, crowded party. The words are leaning on each other, some are holding hands, a few have passed out on the couch, and others left the party an hour ago without telling anyone.
I love that analogy. But if spoken English is this chaotic party, it really makes me wonder how native speakers aren't just constantly misunderstanding each other.
Right.
I mean, if I learned to drive in an empty parking lot, throwing me onto a 10-lane highway in rush hour is going to result in a crash. How do we start identifying these words when they're all crashing into each other?
Well, we have to analyze a linguistic phenomenon known as connected speech. The sources use this fantastic metaphor for it, cursive English.
Oh, like cursive handwriting where the pen never leaves the paper.
Precisely. In print, every letter is a discrete unit with physical space around it. That is your textbook English. But in cursive, the letters share lines. They flow into one another.
Right.
American English is not inherently spoken at a faster words per minute rate than many other languages, but it is spoken connected. It is one continuous stream of sound. There is no white space in the air.
Wow, no white space in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no white space between the words, Our brains have to figure out where one word ends and the next begins,
Exactly.
which means we need to look at the first major mechanism of this cursive English reductions.
Yeah.
This is when multiple words get squished down into a single blob of sound, right?
It is the absolute foundation of natural American speech. Most learners are already familiar with the heavy hitters here, like going to, reducing to gonna.
Right, and want to, reducing to wanna.
Yeah, those are practically officially recognized words at this point. But the sources list a whole family of these. Got to, or have got to, becomes gotta.
Have to turns into hafta.
Kinda shrinks into kinda.
And lemmy compresses into lemmy.
So if you are listening to this deep dive right now, I want you to try physically forming those sounds. Gonna, wanna, gotta, hafta, kinda, lemmy. Say them out loud.
Give it a try.
It might feel unnatural, almost like you are intentionally speaking poorly, but mastering these shapes is critical for your ear.
But let me push back on that idea of speaking poorly, though. Isn't this just sloppy language?
People think that.
Right. Because if I'm a learner trying to master English, why should I lower my standards to emulate people who are too lazy to pronounce all the letters? Doesn't that just lead to bad grammar?
That is the ultimate misconception. It sounds lazy to an untrained ear, but connected speech is actually a highly efficient, highly evolved system. And more importantly, it strictly obeys underlying grammatical rules.
Wait.
Oh yeah. If you try to use these reductions without understanding the invisible grammar supporting them, you will sound bizarre to a native speaker.
Okay, this brings us to the grammar traps highlighted in the sources. Let's look at the wanna trap first.
Let's unpack it. Wanna is the reduction of want to. You can say, I want to go, you want to go, or they want to go. That is grammatically seamless.
Right.
But consider the third person singular, he, she, or it. Can you say, he want to go?
No, my brain immediately flags that as an error. It sounds entirely wrong.
And the reason it sounds wrong is because the underlying textbook grammar requires an S on the verb, he wants to. You cannot simply delete grammatical markers just because you are speaking quickly.
Ah, so the grammar survives the speed.
Exactly. The phonetic hiss of that S is how the listener's brain identifies who is doing the action. So, he wants to reduces to he wants to, never he wanna. You will hear native speakers say, she wants to know why, or he wants to leave. The reduction protects the grammar.
That is fascinating. The lazy version is still carrying the exact same grammatical data, just in a different package.
Yes.
What of the gonna trap?
Yeah.
Because I hear learners misuse this one all the time.
The gonna trap hinges on the function of the word to. The rule is that gonna must be followed by a verb. It requires an action to anchor it.
So I'm going to call you or I'm going to eat. Call and eat are the actions.
Yes. But what happens if you are traveling to a physical destination, a noun, for example, the store? You wouldn't say, I'm going to the store.
That sounds like nails on a chalkboard.
Because in the sentence, I am going to the store, the word going is the primary verb of motion, and to is a preposition indicating direction.
So it's a completely different structure.
Right. You aren't reducing a helper verb and an infinitive particle. You are actually mangling the main action of the sentence. Native speakers subconsciously process this syntactic difference. So, gonna needs a verb to survive. I'm gonna go to the store works perfectly. The store breaks the system.
The fact that our brains are doing this syntactic parsing in a fraction of a second without us ever realizing it is incredible.
It's wild.
Let's ground this in a real-world scenario for the listener. Imagine it's a Friday night. You get a text from a friend. Hey, what you doing tonight?
And the reply might be, nothing much. I'm going to watch a movie. You want to come over?
And then you reply, I wanna, but I gotta work in the morning.
Hmm.
The rhythm of that sentence relies entirely on the reductions. I wanna, but I gotta work.
Try saying it the other way.
I want to, but I've got to work.
Yeah, the rhythm is entirely destroyed.
Which leads directly into a more extreme phonetic shift. Words don't just melt into reductions. Sometimes, when two specific consonants collide at high speeds, they mutate into an entirely new sound.
Consonant collisions. Okay, this is the key to solving the GDIT puzzle from the very beginning of the deep dive.
Yeah.
How do three words transform into one bizarre sound?
It comes down to palatalization.
Big word. I know, but the concept is simple. When a word ends in a T or a D sound, and the immediate next word starts with a U or a your, the tongue is forced to move rapidly from the alveolar ridge, that's the hard bump right behind your top teeth, to the roof of your mouth.
Okay, I can feel that.
In fast speech, the vocal tract takes a shortcut. The collision of those two sounds produces a C or a J sound.
So if we take the words did you, the D and the Y, smashed together, and create a J sound, it becomes didja.
Correct. Don't you becomes don'tcha. Would you becomes woulda.
Oh, and nice to meet you. The T and the Y collide to form a she. Nice to meet ya.
Exactly. So bringing that back to our opening test, did you eat yet?
Step 1, did you becomes gidja. Did you eat yet?
Right. And step 2, the unstressed vowels get dropped entirely to save energy, so it compresses to did you eat yet.
And finally, in fluid cursive speech, it becomes one single acoustic block. Gidya.
Boom. We took a 4-word sentence, deleted most of the vowels, mutated the consonants, and ended up with a sound that isn't even in the alphabet.
It's basically magic.
Yeah.
But if no one ever explicitly teaches a learner that mechanism, they're just left wandering in the dark.
It is exactly why B1 English listening practice has to focus on these acoustic realities. Because once you understand the mechanics of the collision, your brain stops listening for the individual words and starts recognizing the mutated pattern.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Now, there is another massive consonant shift we need to explore. The sources call it the lazy flap T, and I've actually heard it called the defining characteristic of the American accent.
Oh, it absolutely is. Linguistically, it's called an alveolar flap. When a T sits between two vowel sounds, and it is not the stressed syllable of the word, American speakers do not produce a hard, aspirated T.
So they don't block the air and release it sharply.
No. Instead, the tongue just briefly bounces against the roof of the mouth, creating a very soft D sound.
The classic example being water. W-A-T-E-R. We don't say water, we say waiter.
Yes. City becomes city. Better becomes better. Butter becomes butter. The mouth is just taking the path of least resistance.
And because of cursive English, this happens across word boundaries too, right? Like the T doesn't care if it's in the middle of a word or at the end of one, as long as it's trapped between two vowels.
Exactly. So the phrase get out of here features a T in get, followed by an O in out. The T in out is followed by the O in of. They both become flaps. It sounds like Gaduda here.
Wow. Gaduda here
What is it?
becomes what is it?
But wait, it gets even stranger. What happens when that T is preceded by an N?
Ah, the disappearing T.
This one is wild.
It really is. To understand why this happens, you have to think about where your tongue is. When you make an N sound, your tongue is pressed against the alveolar ridge. When you make a T sound, your tongue is in the exact same physical location.
Okay, so the only difference is whether your vocal cords are vibrating.
Exactly. They're acoustic neighbors.
They're roommates.
Yeah. And in fast American speech, if a T follows an N, the brain realizes it's just too inefficient to stop the vocal cord vibration just to pronounce the T, so it simply deletes it, it vanishes. Which means the word 20, T-W-E-N-T-Y, becomes 20.
Internet becomes internet. Interview becomes interview.
Okay, I have to stop you here because this feels like a breaking point for comprehension.
That's how.
Well, if consonants are morphing into new sounds, or just completely vanishing from the language to save a fraction of a millisecond, how is anyone understanding anything? The sources bring up a specific trap with the words winner and winter, which perfectly highlights this problem.
It is a brilliant example. If you apply the disappearing T rule to the word winter, the cold season, the P drops because it follows an N.
Right.
As a result, the acoustic output for winter is identical to the acoustic output for winner, someone who wins a game. They both sound like winner.
So if I hear someone say, it was a long winter, the acoustic data is completely ambiguous. Am I talking about a long, cold season with snow, or a very tall athlete who just crossed a finish line? Native speakers must just be guessing.
They are. That is the secret.
Wait, really?
Yes. The human brain is an elite prediction machine. We do not process language from the bottom up, building meaning letter by letter. We process it from the top down. We use the surrounding context to predict the missing sounds before they are even spoken.
Oh, so if we are shivering in the snow, my brain doesn't even consider the concept of an athlete. It automatically fills in the cold season.
Exactly. You survive the missing sounds through context.
To illustrate how heavily we rely on this contextual prediction, the sources include a great story about a guy named Dave and his dog.
Oh, I love this story.
So Dave has a dog named Waffles, and he takes Waffles to the veterinarian.
And the vet is this fast-talking American, and he gives Dave some dietary advice for the dog. He says he needs a little more water and a lot of less butter.
Translating that from flap T English back to textbook English, he needs a little more water and a lot less butter.
But Dave, processing the speech in real time, isolates the word butter, and he is completely baffled. He turns to the vet and asks, wait, who is giving the dog butter?
And the punchline is that Dave's 6-year-old daughter, who is standing quietly in the corner of the exam room, whispers, "Nobody."
The perfect crime.
Hilarious.
And it only works because Dave accurately decoded the flap T in butter while completely missing the context of his daughter's secret dog feeding operation.
Context is your safety net for sure. But this reliance on predicting missing information becomes incredibly high stakes when we look at sounds that are almost totally invisible.
Right, the really tiny ones.
Yeah, if we look at the invisible schwa, H dropping, and the difference between can and can't, the margin for error is razor thin.
Let's start with the schwa. The schwa is technically the most common vowel sound in the English language, but it has almost no phonetic identity.
The schwa.
I know, right? It is the sound of the vocal tract at total rest, a lazy, neutral sound.
It's the sound you make when someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer.
Oh, exactly. The physics of the schwa are fascinating. In connected speech, grammatical function words, the small structural words like to, of, for, at, and, they don't carry the main meaning of the sentence.
Right, they're just grammar glue.
Because they aren't important, the speaker doesn't waste energy fully articulating their vowels. All of those distinct vowels collapse into the neutral schwa.
So a cup of coffee reduces down to a cup of coffee.
Yes, and a lot of people becomes a lot of people. The brain recognizes that these words are just grammatical glue, so it glosses over them.
It's similar to what happens with H dropping, right? The sources highlight how pronouns just get completely steamrolled in fast speech.
Yes, specifically the pronouns he, him, her, and his. When these words appear in the middle of a sentence and are unstressed, Americans simply do not exhale the puff of air required to make the H sound. The H vanishes.
So the phrase tell him just bleeds together into tell him.
Asker becomes asker. What is his name? Merges into what's his name.
The sources tie this into a great piece of real-world vocabulary, too. The word swamped.
Yeah.
The example dialogue is two coworkers talking, and one says, "What's his problem?" He says he's swamped.
Swamped is a fantastic descriptive word. I mean, a swamp is a physical location, a muddy, flooded wetland where you just sink into the ground.
Like Florida.
Right. So metaphorically, if you are swamped at work, you are sinking in tasks. You are completely overwhelmed by your workload.
I'd love to grab lunch, but I'm swamped today.
Exactly.
But let's look at the ultimate danger zone in B1 English listening practice. The microscopic difference between the positive can and the negative can't.
Oh boy. This is a point of massive confusion for learners. Logically, you would assume the difference between the two words is the sharp aspirated T at the end of can't.
Right, because that's how it's spelled.
But as we've established, American English loves to swallow or drop T's. So how do you differentiate a positive capability from a negative one if the T is silent?
It's a terrifying prospect. The difference between I can do the surgery and I can't do the surgery is a matter of life and death, but they look almost identical on a sound wave.
They really do. The secret to surviving this trap has nothing to do with the letter T. It is entirely about pitch, duration, and volume.
Tell me more.
In the positive version of the sentence, the word can is a grammatical helper. It is unstressed. The vowel collapses into that tiny schwa sound we just discussed. It sounds like K-N, I-N, go, ein, help. It is fast, quiet, and small.
And the negative.
The negative can't is the complete opposite. It carries the vital meaning of the sentence, so it is heavily stressed. The volume is louder, the pitch is higher, the vowel sound is fully formed and held longer. I can't go, I can't help.
So the T might be completely silent, but the word itself is aggressive and dominant.
Yes. Volume and duration are the real alphabet here.
Okay, we have to share your story from the sources because it so perfectly encapsulates the physical danger of misinterpreting this.
Oh no, it is a painful memory.
Let's hear it.
Well, several years ago, I was helping a friend move out of his apartment. We had been hauling boxes all day. We were totally exhausted. He picked up this massive, heavy cardboard box filled with kitchenware. I looked at him and asked, "Hey, can you carry that box?"
And his response.
He was out of breath and exhausted, so he mumbled his response very quietly. Because his volume was so low and the vowel was short, my brain processed the acoustic data as the unstressed positive can. I thought I heard, "I nang carry it."
Oh no, I see where this is going.
Believing he had it under control, I let go of the box.
And gravity did the rest.
It crashed onto the concrete. It was full of ceramic plates, which instantly shattered into 1,000 pieces.
What a nightmare.
When the dust settled, it turned out he had actually said, "I can't carry it." But because he lost his breath support and dropped his volume, he stripped the negative word of its stress. I misinterpreted a mumbled negative for a positive, and the plates paid the price.
That is a phenomenal, tragic example, but it raises a practical question. If someone mumbles and you genuinely cannot tell if they use the tiny an or the loud can't, how do you ask for clarification? As a learner, saying "repeat, please" feels very robotic.
Repeat, please sounds like an interrogation. The most natural, socially graceful phrase a learner can use in that situation is, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that."
Using the verb catch, metaphorically, not catching a physical object.
Exactly. In this conversational context, to catch something means to successfully perceive and understand the acoustic information. Native speakers use it constantly to smooth over misunderstandings. "I didn't catch your name," or "I didn't quite catch that last part."
It's nice because it implies that the sound simply slipped past you, which removes any blame from the speaker.
It's a great conversational shield.
Now, what happens when you do catch the sound perfectly? Your ear processes the phonetics flawlessly, but the dictionary definition you memorized leads you straight into a trap.
Ah,
This brings us to the psychological side of language: false friends, phrasal verbs, and emotion mix-ups.
this is where English transitions from being a purely physical phonetic puzzle into a complex psychological one. The way English maps internal emotions versus external realities is a huge stumbling block.
Give me an example.
The most prominent example is the difference between adjectives ending in ed and adjectives ending in ing.
Right. Bored versus boring.
Hmm.
Interested versus interesting. Frightened versus frightening.
The grammatical rule is straightforward, but the social consequences of confusing them are catastrophic. Adjectives ending in ed describe a person's internal, subjective emotional state. "I am bored."
Oh?
Adjectives ending in ing describe the external source or cause of that emotion. The movie is boring.
So the movie projects the boringness. I receive it and feel bored.
Precisely. Now imagine a scenario from the sources that highlights the danger of mixing these up.
Oh, this story is pure secondhand embarrassment. So picture a learner sitting in a nice coffee shop on a first date with an American.
High stakes already.
Right. The conversation is going reasonably well. The learner wants to express that horror movies are unappealing to them, that they lose interest when watching them. So they look their date in the eye and say, "I don't like horror movies. I am very boring."
Oh, this temperature at the table immediately drops. The date awkwardly checks their phone, mutters some excuse about needing to go feed their cat, and just leaves.
Because the learner didn't just express a preference, they accidentally indicted their entire personality.
Exactly. By using the ing ending, they describe themselves as the external cause of boredom. They meant to say, "I am bored by horror movies," but instead they confessed, "I am a profoundly uninteresting person who will bring no joy to your life."
A tiny two-letter suffix completely altered their social reality.
It's brutal.
Speaking of altering reality with tiny words, we have to talk about phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are so sneaky because the core verb is usually very basic. You know what look means physically. But the moment you attach a preposition to it, the meaning fractures in entirely different directions.
Phrasal verbs are deeply tied to the spatial and metaphorical way English speakers view the world. Let's examine 3 distinct paths for the verb look.
Okay, let's do it.
First, look for. This implies searching for a missing object. "I am looking for my keys." Second, look forward to. This indicates positive anticipation of a future event. "I'm looking forward to the concert." And third, look out. This is a sudden warning of imminent physical danger.
To help lock these 3 distinct meanings into the listener's memory, the sources suggest a really bizarre, vivid, mental visualization.
I love this technique because absurdity makes things sticky in the brain.
So visualize a massive, angry grizzly bear charging through the woods. But this terrifying bear is wearing a tiny, ridiculous top hat. You are standing with a friend as the bear charges. Naturally, you yell, "Look out!"
The spatial metaphor is literal there. Look outside of your immediate bubble because danger is approaching.
The bear hears you, stops abruptly, and realizes his tiny hat has fallen off in the bushes. He drops to all fours and starts digging through the leaves. He's now looking for his hat.
He is actively searching the space.
Finally, he finds the hat, dusts it off, puts it back on his massive head, and smiles because he is on his way to a giant bear party. He is looking forward to the event.
The brain is so much better at retaining strange, sequential narratives than it is at memorizing abstract lists. The bear looks out, looks for, and looks forward to.
Let's shift from bears to restaurants, because there is a notorious pronunciation trap involving false friends that ruins meals. Dessert versus desert.
This trap relies on word stress, which we discussed earlier with rhythm. The spelling is slightly different, but the stress is the real differentiator.
Break it down for us.
Dessert, with 2 S's, is the sweet dish you eat after dinner: cake, pie, ice cream. The stress falls heavily on the second syllable dessert. Desert, with a single S, is a barren, sandy wasteland full of cacti. The stress falls on the first syllable desert.
The mnemonic for the spelling is, great dessert has 2 S's because you always want a second helping of sweet stuff. Dessert has 1 S because no one wants more sand.
Perfect.
But if you misplace the stress in a restaurant, it's a disaster.
Imagine finishing a beautiful meal. The waiter approaches and asks if you care for anything else. You intend to order a slice of cake, but you stress the first syllable. Yes, I would like a dessert.
You just ordered a bucket of sand.
And right next to that trap is the acoustic confusion between soup and soap.
Oh, this one is terrible.
It comes down to vowel formation. Soup, the hot liquid meal, requires an ooh sound with the lips pushed forward. Soap, the chemical bar you use to wash your hands, requires an ooh sound where the mouth opens wider.
The culinary tragedy of ordering a bowl of hot soap followed by a large desert.
Seriously.
It feels like English is just a minefield where a millimeter of lip movement ruins your life. But honestly, as a learner, how much does perfection matter?
Perfection is an illusion. And to prove that, the sources share a fantastic story about a high-stakes job interview.
Oh, the poisonous guy.
Yes, a learner was interviewing for a corporate position. He was nervous but had memorized a complex sentence to demonstrate his dedication. He intended to say, "I am a hard worker and I am passionate about this position."
Passionate, deeply enthusiastic, highly motivated.
But under the stress of the interview, his brain retrieved the wrong acoustic file. He looked the hiring manager dead in the eyes with total sincerity and said, "I am a hard worker and I am poisonous about this position."
Poisonous, toxic, deadly, a threat to human life. He essentially threatened the company.
The room went completely silent for several seconds. The hiring manager was shocked. But then the manager burst out laughing. The learner realized his error and started laughing too.
Did he get the job after threatening them?
He did, and that is the crucial takeaway. Communication is fundamentally about human connection, not flawless grammatical execution. If you can laugh at your mistakes, you demonstrate self-awareness and warmth. The mistake actually made him more memorable and likable.
It reminds me of the guy in the coffee shop who was running late, wanted to explain he was in a hurry, panicked, and just yelled, "I'm hot," which implies either my internal body temperature is elevated or I am incredibly physically attractive. A stranger just opened the door to let some cold air in for him. It's hilarious and nobody got hurt.
Which serves as a perfect bridge into the pragmatics of English. How do we navigate the real world, manage our tone, and project the right personality without sounding like a textbook from the 1980s?
Let's talk about pragmatics and politeness. Because different cultures encode politeness very differently. In many languages, being direct is simply efficient. But in American English, directness can easily be mistaken for aggression.
That is a major cultural stumbling block. If you directly translate your native syntax, you might sit down at a restaurant and say, "Give me the chicken, I want water."
To an American ear, that sounds like a monarch barking orders at a peasant. "Give me the chicken!" It completely violates the social contract of service.
Americans have a deep cultural aversion to sounding like they are giving commands in casual settings. They soften their demands by masking them as gentle questions.
But conversely, if a learner tries to be polite by using rigid textbook English, saying, "I would like to have the chicken," it sounds incredibly formal.
It's like wearing a tuxedo to a casual backyard barbecue.
So if "give me gulp" is too aggressive, and "I would like to have" is too formal, what is the natural middle ground?
Native speakers use soft, casual phrasing. Could I get? Or I'll take. Could I get the chicken sandwich? I'll take a large iced tea. I'll do the salad. It maintains the politeness of a question while staying completely relaxed.
That is so useful. What about retail environments? Walking into a clothing store can be a nightmare for a learner. A salesperson approaches, flashes a huge smile, and says, "Can I help you find anything?" And the learner just freezes or flees the store.
You need a conversational shield, a polite way to decline interaction without causing offense. The magic phrase is, "I'm just browsing, thanks," or "I'm just looking, thanks."
Browsing, like a web browser. It implies you are casually scanning the environment without a specific objective. It perfectly signals that you don't need assistance, but you appreciate the offer. Okay, but let's look at a social reflex that backfires constantly. The "you too" trap.
This is a product of passive listening. The sources tell the story of Carlos, who is checking in for a flight to New York. The check-in agent is cheerful. She processes his bag, hands over his boarding pass, and says, "Have a nice flight."
And Carlos, relying on his memorized polite reflexes, instantly replies, "You too."
And as he walks toward security, the horror washes over him. He realizes the agent is standing behind a desk. She's not getting on an airplane. He just told an airport employee to go have a nice flight.
We've all done this. You memorize paired interaction. Someone says, "Have a good weekend." You say, "You too," but you apply it blindly. If a waiter sets down a pizza and says, "Enjoy your meal," and you say, "You too," you have just invited the waiter to pull up a chair and eat your pizza.
Overcoming this requires shifting from passive reflex to active listening. You must process the context. If the person wishing you well is not actively participating in the activity, do not deploy "you too." A simple, sincere thank you is always the safest bet.
Let's shift from social traps to temporal traps, navigating tenses in the real world. Textbooks often make tenses feel like abstract math equations with timelines and arrows, but the sources provide a remarkably clear way to understand the difference between the simple past and the present perfect, using the example of lost keys.
Let's analyze the psychological difference between these two statements, "I lost my keys," versus "I've lost my keys." Which of those sentences implies a current active emergency?
I've lost my keys. The present perfect.
Exactly. And the reason goes beyond a timeline. The present perfect exists to connect a past event directly to the speaker's present reality. "I've lost my keys" means the action happened in the past, but the consequence is happening right now.
I'm currently locked out. I'm currently panicking. The past is bleeding into the present.
Whereas the simple past, "I lost my keys," feels emotionally distant. It's just a historical data point. "I lost my keys last year, but I found them, so it doesn't matter." It carries no weight in the present moment.
The sources take this concept even further with the present perfect continuous, the infamous bin-ing structure. I've been working here for 5 years.
Right. Why do we need the continuous form there?
It is about directing the listener's focus. If you use the continuous form, "I've been working, I've been studying," you are highlighting the duration, the ongoing effort, the sweat equity of the journey.
If you merely want to state a completed achievement, you use the standard present perfect. I have worked at 3 companies.
Yeah.
It's all about what aspect of your reality you want to project to the listener.
Okay, as we near the culmination of our deep dive into B1 English listening practice, we have to talk about the ultimate secret to achieving native-level fluency, the concept of chunks.
If a learner takes only one concept away from this entire deep dive, it should be chunking. Cognitive science shows that native speakers do not process language word by word.
Their brains would just overload.
Exactly. The brain's working memory cannot handle that much isolated data. Instead, the brain groups words together into single, holistic units of meaning, a chunk.
So when a native speaker asks, "What do you think?" they aren't accessing 4 separate vocabulary words.
No, the brain accesses one single phonetic blob, what I think. It occupies a single slot in working memory, and its assigned meaning is simply requesting an opinion.
There are dozens of these high-frequency chunks. "How are you doing?" is processed as "How are doing?" "I don't know" is "You know."
Probably becomes probably. "Let me know" is "Let me know." "No worries, my bad, I'm down."
We have to mention the cake tragedy from the sources regarding the chunk, "I'm good."
Yes, the phrase "I'm good" is a fascinating chunk. If you are at a party and the host holds out a tray with a piece of chocolate cake, looks at you and asks, "Do you want some?" What happens if you smile, nod, and say, "I'm good"?
They will pull the tray away and you get no cake.
Because the chunk "I'm good" in American pragmatics does not mean I am currently experiencing a positive emotional state. It specifically means, "No thank you, my needs are already met."
If you actually want the cake, that chunk will betray you. You have to say, "Yes, please."
To demonstrate the sheer power of chunks, reductions, and connected speech working together, the sources provide a final boss sentence.
I love this part.
It features Dave, the guy with the dog, Waffles. Dave is running late for a vacation. He's handing his dog off to a pet sitter, and he fires off this chaotic, high-speed set of instructions as he runs out the door. Let's break it down neurologically, piece by piece.
Dave yells, "Hey, so, Gidiet. He can't have the stuff in a blue bag."
Okay, let's freeze that and decode. Hey, so is just a conversational filler chunk. Gee yet. We know this one. Did you eat yet?
Then we hit the negative danger zone. He can't have.
Yeah.
It's loud, stressed, and elongated, warning the sitter. Then, a massive reduction. The stuff in the blue bag compresses to ina.
Next part, you got to give him the green one.
You have got to triggers the got a reduction.
Yeah.
Then we see H dropping in give him, transforming it into give him.
And if he starts scratching at the door, don't let him out because he'll probably run to the neighbors.
The G drops off scratching. H dropping returns for let him out, creating let him out, because he will probably get compacted into the chunks because he'll probably.
And if that happens, just call her. She's got his other leash, no worries. Gotta go. Love ya, bye.
We see extreme H dropping on the pronouns her and his caller, got is. And he exits on a string of pure chunks. No worries, gotta go, love ya.
If you attempt to translate that sentence word for word, looking for textbook white space, you will completely drown. But if your brain is trained to recognize the chunks, the disappearing consonants, and the rhythm, a sentence that looks like pure chaos suddenly snaps into perfect clarity.
This makes me wonder about the big picture. If native speakers are speaking in these melodic chunks, crushing small words into schwas and stressing the important nouns and verbs, are they basically just playing a song?
That's a great way to put it.
Is that why getting the rhythm right is actually more important than pronouncing every single letter perfectly?
That is an incredibly astute observation. Linguistically, English is classified as a stress-timed language. Contrast that with a syllable-timed language like Spanish or Japanese, where every syllable gets roughly equal time and weight.
Right.
English operates on a drum beat. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do. We stress the crucial words to keep the beat, and we forcefully crush all the grammar words into schwas to fit them into the space between the beats. Rhythm is the primary vehicle for meaning. If you master the rhythm, native speakers will understand you instantly, even if your vowel formations are slightly off.
That is such a liberating paradigm shift for a learner. You don't have to be a perfect phonetic dictionary. You just have to find the groove of the song, which entirely changes how someone should approach listening practice. How do we actually train our neurological pathways to hear this music?
The most common mistake learners make is assuming that volume equals progress. They think if they just play English podcasts in the background for 6 hours a day, their brain will magically absorb the language through osmosis.
Doesn't work that way.
No. Listening comprehension does not improve simply by listening more. It improves by listening closer.
The sources outline a highly specific neurological training technique called shadowing.
Shadowing forces your brain to bridge the gap between perception and production. You take a very short clip of native audio, maybe just 60 seconds from a YouTube video, a movie, or a deep dive like this one.
Okay.
You listen to it repeatedly until you understand the rhythm, and then you speak along with it out loud, trying to perfectly mimic the acoustic output.
You aren't just reading a transcript. You are trying to replicate the lazy flap T's, the dropped H's, the squished schwa sounds.
Exactly. You are building muscle memory in your vocal tract. By forcing your mouth to produce the chaotic, melted forms of cursive English, you are reverse engineering your ear. Your brain becomes vastly more efficient at recognizing sounds that your mouth physically knows how to make.
Just 1 minute a day of intense shadowing can completely rewire how you process language. And if you've been engaged with us for this entire deep dive, I want you to take a moment and recognize what you just accomplished.
You've done a lot.
You just processed a massive amount of complex, high-speed, analytical English. You decoded phonetic mysteries, you understood the cultural nuances, and you are actively building new neural pathways.
It might happen next week or it might happen in 3 months. You're going to be in a noisy room. Someone will fire off a chaotic, fast sentence in English. You will not translate it in your head.
Wow.
You will not search your mental database for a grammar rule. You will simply understand it as intuitively as you understand your mother tongue. Think about how that will feel when the noise you've been fighting finally transforms into music.